I'd like to call the Northumberland County Planning Commission in session at this time. I have a roll call, Stuart.
Yes, sir. Chris Crawley. Here. Vivian Diggs.
Here.
Alan Garland. He mentioned he was not going to be able to make it. John Cost.
Present.
Roger McKinley. He also said he could not make it. Patrick O'Brien.
Here.
Garfield Parker.
Here.
Miss Wilkins Corey. She said she was not going to be able to make it. And Charles Williams.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. Would you do the invocation for us this morning?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yep.
you. Charles, do you do the pledge?
Heavenly Father, we thank you for all the blessings that you have given us in our lives. Please give us the wisdom tonight to make decisions that best serve you and the needs of our community. Please take and wrap in your loving arms the Thomas family as they mourn the passing of Steve Thomas, a great man. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Do you have a pledge?
Pledge of allegiance, if you would.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes from the February 20th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. I'll open up for commissioners' comments at this time, if you have any. All right. Staff members' comments.
Just to keep the Planning Commission informed, the Capital Improvement Committee has met 3 times. I've interviewed all department heads that, well, not all, but majority of the department heads that submitted capital improvement projects, and we're on track to hopefully get that wrapped up and have a public hearing in next meeting.
All right, thank you. This is a part of our, at this time, where we have comments from citizens, so long as it does not pertain to what we're going to talk about in the public hearing tonight. So if anyone has anything, first of all, welcome. I'm so glad to see you. I believe I know just about everybody. But if you have a comment at this time, this is your time. This is the one time in our county where you are a citizen and a taxpayer, and we listen to whatever you have to say. All right.
Mr. Chairman, is there anybody out in the zone?
6 people online. Okay, does anyone online have anything they would like to say at this time? All right. Thank you for tuning in and listening. All right, Stuart?
Yes, sir, let me get the sign-in sheet for the public hearing, and we can start that.
We start getting such heavy attendance, maybe we should start charging admission. This is kind of cool.
Not bad.
I want to mention that neither I nor Philip got any correspondence for or against, and it doesn't look like anybody signed up either.
Okay, all
So,
right.
Nobody for or against, and no public comments regarding this project, sir. This public hearing is a request by Crystal Cove Housing LLC owner and Carolyn Crockett applicant for a conditional use permit to allow a child care facility on property zone B1 Business General. The property is shown as tax parcel 36125C and is located at 740 Jesse DuPont Memorial Highway. This is in Burgess, and it's kind of tucked in behind the dairy barn, if everybody knows where the dairy barn is.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you. Dr. Crocker, would you like to have something to say?
Good evening to the Planning Commission. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Crockett, 374 Lewis Lane in Eastville, Virginia. My quest and desire is to start a child care center in the properties of the old Dr. Beatley's office. It's a very much needed area of expertise that I have. It's a need for this. I know with scavenging, with going through the community, we only have a few licensed daycare facilities. And sometimes it can become overwhelming for the ones that are already in operation. Therefore, they have a long waiting list for children to be signed up. And so I have been an educator of the Northumberland Public School System for over 8 years in Northumberland County, the middle school and the high school, working as a special needs educator. I then matriculated to Essex County and did the same employment. Then I matriculated to Richmond County, working with mental health students at one of the facilities there. And so I have a vast background of dealing with the public and dealing with children of these calibers. And so therefore, I come before you just wanting to get this business started so that we can work with these children to make them productive citizens in the near future. That's my quest, to do this. And I know that we're working with these children. I know that they'll be very productive to be sitting behind the desk that you're sitting behind one day. And so if you have any questions for me, I will be more than willing to answer those questions. I'm really gung-ho about this. I've been waiting for a little while of thinking about doing this, and I finally started back on last year of August to get everything in preparation. And so I do thank Mr. Haney for allowing me the opportunity to utilize that facility to get this business started.
Commissioners, yes.
Thank you for being here. So is this your choir? Is the child care center have its own
This
choir?
is my choir, yes, and I'm so happy to see them all. I mean, I'm just overwhelmed, and it just brings tears to my heart to see that you all are so supportive of me, and I know that you believe in me. I believe in myself, but I know that you believe in me as well, and so I want to applaud you all for turning out on today.
Just a couple of quick questions, and they're all very positive. So you talked about your special needs background, and thank you for being good at that, because it's so important. Is this a child care facility primarily for special needs, or is it all?
It's for all children.
Okay.
All
great.
children from all backgrounds.
Okay.
All children from all backgrounds, yes.
And is there an age gap or age range that
Well, the age that I want to start with, I want to start with toddlers.
Okay.
I want to start with them, ages 1, and matriculate to working with after-school care. Later, once we get going and get up, the business started, these are some of the areas that I'll be looking into. Infants, we will do them later on, and once we get started with a new business, but not at this time. We're just going to basically start with the 1-year-olds and move up, the toddlers and move up.
Great. And do you already have, to your knowledge, a group of people, kids that you likely would see enrolling right away? You've seen the demand?
Well, I'm sure we have a waiting list because I'm working with the Department of Social Services as well, and they have a long list of individuals that are waiting. So, we have Ms. Thompson, Dr. Thompson, that's also in the area. So she's kind of basically catering me through the process as well. And her center is already up and going, and she's been in this over 10 years. And I mean, the list for her is just overwhelming, and it's waiting. She has a waiting list. So we deem it necessary to basically start another day center for children as well. And she will expand hers later on as well. But right now, we're going to matriculate and go down in here myself to start a new business.
Very much needed.
Yes.
And then one final thing. So you've been through all the state laws and regulations. You know what you're dealing with there?
If I had brought that booklet in here, you would know that I know what I'm doing with the state regulation. Definitely
God
so.
love you for trying.
Yes, absolute. Thank you.
Dr. Crockett, I appreciate you trying to bring jobs to the county. That's
Yes.
a wonderful thing. How many people do you think might be employed?
Well, to start off, I'll probably start off with 1 or 2 employees because it's a new business. But believe me, as we grow, we will and hire much more individuals. I need all the approvals first. Once I get all the approvals, I know exactly what to do according to ratio when it comes to how many students will be in this facility. And not only that, you know, talking with Mr. Conaway, he came, he looked at the building. Before I came to you all, he approved it as far as what needs to be done, saying where it needs to be and all that good stuff, what the requirements of the county is looking for. Some of the stuff that the county looks for, the State Board of Education does not look for. And so he wants basically to get, according to the county, to get a handicap rail for the front, and then a fence in for the playground. And so once you all approve us, then we'll start going through the process of getting this equipment that needs to be there as well for the state, for you all in the county.
Great.
Ma'am, just so we're clear on this, the Planning Commission will make a recommendation
Yes,
to the Board of Supervisors, but they have the final word.
okay.
And I don't really think it can or should move until they give you a final decision.
Yes.
Okay.
Believe me, they already told me the process. You and then them. Yes, yes.
Dr. Crockett, this is being applied for by Crystal Cove Housing LLC and yourself. Who is, or what is Crystal Cove Housing? Is that local corporation?
I think that's the company's name that's owned by Mr. Haney.
Okay.
So I'm the person that will be utilizing his facility.
I
He's
see.
not the one that's the person that's coming before you to start the center. I am. So I had to put his name on that application because he's the person that owns that building.
That's fine.
So
Yes.
his role with you, with your business is simply as the landlord, he's not a
Yes.
partner? Okay. That's
Yes,
helpful.
he's the landlord,
Got it.
yes.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm not familiar with the structure. This is all going to be in Dr. Beatley's old offices.
Yes, sir.
How big is that? Could you describe it for me?
Say that again?
Could you describe it for me? And I'm wondering how big it is and what,
Well, the part that I have a functional design that I will be giving to the State Board of Education. So with the facility that's there, we're going to be, according to Mr. Conaway, he approved the front of the building simply because of the fact we have to have an exit for the children to be able to go out of. So therefore, we're utilizing that part of the building in the front where Dr. Beatley was housing maybe, for instance, if you're going there for a checkup or you're going there for a doctor's appointment, you would have to sit in the forum. So I'll be using the forum part, and everything else is, we close that off. We're not using any more of that facility, no more than the kitchen, the 3 bathrooms, and that's basically it. That's the area in which we will be utilizing.
but it is expandable if necessary.
Yes, sir. Yes, very much so.
What kind of shape is it in?
Oh my, it's excellent shape. This place is very much in excellent shape. I would have never went there or even inquired about it if it wasn't in shape for the State Board of Education.
How long has it been unoccupied?
I think the Boys and Girls Club was there not too long ago.
Oh, is it? Okay.
How many employees will you require there for? I guess it depends on how many.
It's your ratio. If you have 10 children, then you need 1 staff per that 10 children. Okay, so basically, you know, if you're dealing with toddlers, you need 1 staff to 4 infants. So that's basically how the State Board of Education works. So what we do, we follow their ratio. So whatever their ratio says, according to their policies, this is how I have to employ people according to that for each age bracket.
Ma'am, it says on your application that you have no plans for lighting?
For lighting?
Yes, ma'am. Does that include exterior lights?
I think everything with that building, am I correct, Mr. Haney, is there. Everything is there on the properties. So we don't need any extra lightings or anything for that particular
Talking about exterior lighting.
exterior lighting.
I'm, wondering about 6 o'clock when the sun goes down.
No, I don't plan to keep the center open no longer than 5:30. So I don't think the lights would kind of be down. The parents usually,
They
yeah.
get delayed.
Yeah, but the thing is that he has proper light in there.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. Okay.
Is the dairy barn going to be your lunchroom?
It may be.
You know, lots of sugar, got them hyped up.
So you want to open the public hearing? I'm not sure if somebody online might want to speak, but obviously we don't have anybody here that wants to speak. Okay. You want to open the public hearing?
I'm going to open up the public hearing now. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I,
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I do have a comment. The comment's available.
Is there anybody online that'd like to have something to say?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. This is Reverend Dr. Linda Blizzard II, resident 843 Pratchtown Road, Eastfield, Virginia. I believe the Planning Commission should do its best due diligence to advance this proposal forward to the Board of Supervisors. In Northumberland County, we have a lack of child care facilities and throughout the Northern Neck. This is a great opportunity for us to support this organization that is utilizing the space of the Board of Youth occupied through the work here at State National Planning Commission and through the Board of Supervisors and provide the support needed for youth development as this is a child care facility. I believe Dr. Crockett is well suited for this opportunity, and I believe that we can see a lot of great progress that can come through this collaborative work here in Northumberland County. That concludes my comment.
All right, thank you, Dr. Blizzard. Would there be anyone else online? Anybody else? Okay, all right, Mr. Haney.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Today was a,
Name and address.
my name is Philip Johnson Haney II, 1015 Ways Creek Road. Today was a sad day for America. My heart wept. I watched the President of the United States sign an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. And that is sad. When you do that, I don't think people realize what happens. People like education is the key to opportunity for poor people, underserved people to move up. Without an education, you're not getting very far. When they dismantled this, it affected people like me with student loans. How are these kids going to get an education when the organization that's responsible for the student loans is gone away? All of these kids, the Department of Education handles special needs kids. I have a grandson who's autistic that has to go to Richmond every day to get the training that he needs to be a citizen, to be able to live on himself. This is in jeopardy when we do away with the Department of Education. So I think it's critical that the county has its own backup plan to deal with these children. There are a lot of children that if they don't get the help that they need in places like this, their parents don't have the time or not home that can tutor them in the afternoons and allow them to keep up in school. And what happens is these kids get further and further and further behind. So I think it's critical that if we're going to raise productive citizens, we can either invest in education or we can invest in prisons, because it's going to be one or the other. And it's to everybody's benefit to invest in education. So I hope you all will work with her, because like I said, we have a lot of special needs children in the county. And if all of these federal funds get cut off, they're not going to be able to go to Richmond and see what they need. And we're going to have to start taking care of our own. So I think this is a great project and would encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Would there be anyone else who would like to have something to say? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing now and turn it over to the commission. I would like a motion, sir.
There's a lot of paperwork to read. We go through this all the time, bear with us. Mr. Chairman, I move that the conditional,
Perhaps we could talk about the conditions first? Oh, you're doing that? Okay. I thought you were making a motion.
so I would move that we adopt the request, and under the conditions set forth on the screen, all required permits and licenses shall be obtained from all the appropriate regulatory agencies, including but not limited to the Virginia Department of Social Services. The building shall comply with the Virginia statewide building code. Any proposed lighting shall be non-reflective and direct downward to prevent any glare on adjoining properties. And non-compliance of any, of any of these conditions shall result in this permit to come back before the Board of Supervisors for possible revocation. This motion is made in due consideration of the public health and safety, the general welfare of the community, public necessity, convenience, and the exercise of good zoning practices, and is pursuant to the body's statutory authority.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Here we go. That's the
Next step is Board of Supervisors,
next step is we're sending this to the Board of Supervisors
and next month.
next month. All right, thank you.
I'd like to say thank you all so much.
Congratulations and good luck to you. Thank you.
So much.
And maybe the choir can set all that to music for me, 'cause that's a pain.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I need to fix anything before you.
And it's in a good spot back here. I don't see where anybody.
Amend the motion.
Before you go,
I apologize. I had an old version of the conditions. As Dr. Crockett probably knows, the Department of Social Services no longer handles child care. And the first condition should read, all required permits and our license shall be obtained from all appropriate regulatory agencies included but not limited to the Virginia Department of Health and the Virginia Department of Education, Division of Child Care and Early Childhood Development. And that's just basically the first condition, just changing social service to Department of Education and Virginia Department of Health.
I move my motion as approved be it amended as read.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And I apologize for that error.
Thank you.
That's okay, I knew they didn't.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. All right.
So impressed that John's motion had all that language at the end that we're
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
remember to say.
Well, I put, they're in little
Yeah,
sheets now,
yeah.
Okay.
so we just pass them around.
Okay. All right.
Maybe just slightly not as impressed then.
Work session items.
I'm just trying to
Yeah, let's.
write my
I'll give you a chance
mistakes.
to finish, right.
Great thing. A lot of the, gosh knows when my kids were in school.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I had my mom as a backup. Daycare was not available.
Now,
I discussed that.
yeah, and if you have an autistic child,
So Mr.
Wow.
Ryan made the motion that time?
I did.
You did, and he seconded it. So it's the same thing as it was
I don't know if it's
last
a
time.
diagnosis thing or it's just.
well, I don't think enough people know how many children go to Richmond every day, private car, because they need, the services are not here.
I understand we have recently discovered a massive deficit in the school budget for special needs programs.
Yep,
And it's like $250,000 deficit.
Well,
They won't lose any funds.
yeah, and as they are running in jeopardy of losing,
Next year's funding.
absolutely, and if that happens,
But correct me if I'm wrong, That's money that has to be spent this year. I think.
It's a spend it or lose it type situation?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
And if we don't figure out a way to spend it, assuming we have the money, it's got to be done this year, and it's got to be submitted to the state with the application for next year's funding.
Right.
We're in the school year.
Yeah, we're way beyond the 8 ball.
But the county's obligation or school board's obligation to come up with,
Ultimately falls to, it falls to the county by law.
The
Yeah.
school board has no revenue
They don't
stream.
generate money.
So that falls on the county.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to come up with some sort of a proposal. I don't think this county can do that for them. I don't know, if they try, it's gonna result in a jurisdictional fight.
Well, there's plenty of jurisdictional fight already going on, believe me.
Yeah.
I think so. I think so.
I never knew that this would be such a make-work project.
Yeah. Well, now Stuart,
yes, sir.
are we going to go to our work session?
Yes, sir. Chapter 5, I mean, I made the changes, you want me to go through them? They're really not really substantive, but Mr. Cost pointed out some areas where there was inconsistency, and some agencies were referred to with acronyms, and some were, there wasn't a lot of consistency in referring to state agencies. So I made the changes he requested, and I get happy with the capitalization sometimes. So we got the R reduced down there, and since we have CBLAB up here, there's no need to spell it all out again, so we just put CBLAB in. Of course, that is no longer exists, but that's who originally came up with the Chesapeake Bay Act. We talked about this, I believe, 2 meetings ago, that shall have, Mr. Cost mentioned that shall has a specific meaning, and that it doesn't fit here, and it should be should. And so we changed that because we can't force people to do this, but we would like to steer them in this direction. Another shall that we replaced with may. And this development of land and steep soils, everybody well, I hope everybody knows that we have sandy soils here, and when you remove vegetation, and steep slopes is a recipe for serious erosion. So we want them to keep the very, very steep slopes non-developed and remain undisturbed. So I thought a stronger word would be appropriate there. Again, the consistency here, we had the health department, so we're going to, throughout the chapter, we're going to call it the Virginia Department of Health. Okay. I can't make any changes to that, but this is page 5A and B. Okay. And remove general and this is the Chesapeake Bay Local Assistance Department was the legacy agency that created the Chesapeake Bay Act. Now the Virginia Department of Quality is the actually Division of Stormwater is where the Chesapeake Bay Act liaisons are held now. And that's just basically saying we want to maintain the 100-foot buffer to capture nutrients before they reach the waterways. Again, try to use acronyms instead of spelling out everything. So we are calling the Chesapeake Bay Resource Protection Area the CBRPA, hopefully throughout the document, unless I missed some. Oh, there's one right there. 57A.
Does any of this get printed anymore? Or is everything just electronic?
I'm not planning on printing anything except for perhaps the planning commission. So it'll be a PDF on the webpage. Unless there's some, it just very cost, it costs a lot, and it's just, nobody prints anything
No,
anymore.
I agree, it makes sense to me.
Right, and then 6 says need to change the RPA to CB RPA. All right, 6A. 6. The resource, it's our Chesapeake Bay Act Resource Protection Area. So, we can call it RPA if you want to instead of CBRPA. But, both of them are fine as long as we stay consistent. And obviously I haven't been, but I will. We'll just do CBPR, RPA. Just wanted to explain that, that groundwater is still declining, and that we participated in the Northern Neck Regional Supply Plan, and we did it regionally. When they first started out with the water supply plans, they said you could do it by county or you can do it regionally. And now they've learned that regional plans are much better to cover the state. So we did a regional plan, and then before it was cool. Now everybody has to do a regional plan. But the groundwater is still dropping. Basically just made it a little clearer and said included below. And basically, this is talking about nutrient management plan and farm plans for agricultural lands and chemicals, and that we'll work with the health department and DCR to monitor that. Part of the Chesapeake Bay Act provisions is that we have to do each year a sample of 2 ag farms and see if they're in compliance, just kind of a gauge to see, it's random which one you pick, but that's part of our policing the farm plans. And it's an advantage for a farmer to have a farm plan because he knows what type of soil it has, how much nutrients he needs to put on, so he won't over-apply nutrients. So it's in the farmer's benefit to have these nutrient management plans.
Is that based on a certain acreage? Does this have to be a certain size farmer before that kicks in, or it really doesn't matter?
Well, they encourage it for everybody, but it's not required for anybody. So, it's one of those things that if you want to minimize your inputs, you want to spend the extra money to get that nutrient management plan done and keep it up to date. And a certain state and federal funding are dependent on whether you have a nutrient management plan or not.
Okay.
And you wouldn't be eligible if you did not have a nutrient management plan.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
You've already defined those terms, so all that stuff is BDH, and those terms are already defined.
Okay. The Chesapeake Bay Act requires a primary drain field and a reserve drain field, and they both have to be approved by the Department of Health. This last sentence, a lot of developers, when they're trying to fit a lot of things into a small lot, will make a primary field a gravity conventional system and then make the secondary system a reserve drain field for an alternative system. The alternative systems are very expensive, and they require a smaller footprint because the water is treated through internal processes better than a conventional septic system, but the cost of those is like $20,000 last I checked. So we encourage them, if you have a primary conventional field, to have a reserve conventional. Of course, some sites you can't do that, but we would rather them not create an alternative reserve field. Because that will be a very big surprise to the homeowner when and if his first septic system fails.
Well, Stu, have there been any drain field failures?
There are, and then there's a list of failed septic systems, and the health department, there's no money to fix those, and it's been a big problem. I haven't kept up with it for a few years, but nobody wants to throw the elderly lady that has no income out because her septic system fails. Other states, like Maryland, have fees and taxes that go into a septic repair fund, and if you're a certain income eligible, they'll repair your fund. Now, the Planning District Commission does routinely have pump-out grants for low-income people, where you can get your septic tank pumped out. But as far as, there is a revolving loan fund, I believe the Planning District has, but I believe all that money's been spent out. So that's, there are failing septic systems out there, and the health department, I'm sure, does the best they can, but it's one of the things I think we can improve.
So if the planning district is going to jump into one, so to speak, does the homeowner have to initiate it, or does the government initiate that?
The homeowner, I mean, this is just a pump out. Another requirement of the Chesapeake Bay Act is you pump your septic system every 5 years. Or you can put a filter on your drain field and then it backs up in your house when it clogs up. And people do that because they don't want government to tell them what to do. And it's also, it's average, I've heard anecdotal stories of septic systems 75 years old. And say for me, I live in a 3-bedroom house with one person. So technically, I really shouldn't have to pump it out for every 15 years, but 5 years is just the happy medium that they chose. For a damaged septic system, pumping out the septage, solids, help from clogging it further. And that's the main thing, is what happens when the solids build up to your drain field, they clog the holes in the perforated hole, perforated drain field lines. And also the soil forms a biomat that does not absorb water. I had a friend that had that happen to his, and he lives in a pretty wet area. This is out of county, but he was able to get a septic company to come in and put drain lines in between his existing drain lines. So he lucked out there. Some systems, they last a long time, but it's like changing the oil in a car. It may not be the same for each car, but you need to do it from time to time.
F, that should be BDEQ.
All right, this is 510F.
We're still on the B, section B.
We're on superficial aquifer conventional shallow wells, page 10. And see, that's the problem when you try to follow around with the original, because when I make changes and add sentences, the pagination gets messed up, and I was having problems with that. But so F needs to be BDQ.
Right, on H, in the middle line there, it says first artesian water is high in sodium. Is that meant to be salt, or is it actually sodium?
It's sodium, but there's also calcium salts as well. It probably should be better say total suspended solids. But that's not really. But we can change it. The deeper the deeper the well's aquifer is, the more chance it is percolated through various minerals and dissolved ions and things of that nature. And most all of the wells, and the closer you get to Reedville, the more sodium there is.
Okay.
But, I mean, I can change it to total suspended solids, but I don't think the average layperson knows. I would say most of it is salts. Okay. Yeah, people on sodium-restricted diets
Yes,
have
right.
problems around here, and I guess they drink bottled water or have a filter. Water's not safe, drink the beer. So we got VDH. Again, the high sodium content, sodium levels range from 110 to 185 per liter in the county. And EPA says for those with low sodium intake is 20 milligrams per liters. I mean, that's the deep wells. The shallow wells do not have those salts, but they also have more chance of contamination from agricultural chemicals and fertilizers and things of that nature. Department of Shellfish Sanitation goes throughout. They used to do it a lot more often and further inland, but they actually have technicians that go out, and I think now it's a quarter mile inland they look, for potential pollution sources that could impact shellfish growing areas. And so I get notices of the condemned areas. Sometimes they change, sometimes they're seasonal. There are mandatory shellfish closures around boat ramps and marinas and places where boats are moored. And then others are dependent on the water testing that they do annually. So we just keep up with that. And when people ask, you have to apply to VMRC for an oyster cage, and we try to explain to them that you need to check to make sure your creek is not condemned and before you eat your shellfish. So, but we encourage that because that helps clean the water. Again, acronym city, we got USGS and VD8, VDEQ, and VDH. This is working with them regarding the groundwater management, Eastern Virginia groundwater management area. I checked this website and it's still active, I believe. And that's the Surprise Hill USGS aquifers that goes into five different aquifers that monitors it. Reservoirs, we've gone around and around on this, and basically I'm just trying to reiterate what we said in chapter 3, that at this time designing, building a reservoir, and I need to put and a water treatment, but I can't. But 514. A water treatment system and a pipeline network to deliver throughout the county is not economically feasible at this time. However, in the future, with further decline in groundwater levels, reservoirs may become more feasible. So we took out the comprehensive study because that's not in the cards that I know of, and that we're not going to tell people they can't build near the reservoirs. Most of the footprint of the reservoirs is pretty lowland and could be marshy. So I don't expect too many people building in those footprints. There are also steep gullies on both sides, so it'd be steep land. So I don't think we're going to have any people building in the reservoir footprints. And again, as I mentioned before, that study was done in 1969, before the Clean Water Act and before any environmental regulations at all. And today, the Army Corps of Engineers do not want you building main stem reservoirs because you get a tropical storm and it blows the dam out. They would rather you have an upland reservoir that you pump water to. That way you would impact no riverine or vegetated wetlands. Of course, you have to pump that water up there. They want less than 5-acre watersheds so that if we do get 12 inches in 24 hours, that it won't blow the dam out. When I was at the PDC, I took the flood elevation of each of the reservoirs and went along the contours in the USGS topographic map, and then overlaid that with the county's building footprints. And there was no buildings in any footprints of the reservoirs. The closest one was like 50 feet away, and that was down on the edge near Lancaster. I guess I need to strike this whole D, because I looked online, Dividing Creek Association, they have a homeowner association, and they said they quit monitoring in, I think, 2013 for lack of funding. So I should just strike the whole thing here, and so that's 515D will be struck.
515 what?
D, it's 8D. It's water quality testing. It's right before title shoreline preservation.
Okay.
VIM's created shoreline situation reports for Northumberland County. So if you so choose, you can look on that and see what type of shoreline they would, protection they would suggest for your property. They're worried about losing all the wetlands because of sea level rise, so they're really pushing marsh grasses as a living shoreline as a way to protect your shoreline. And so all that information is available at VIM's.
So this is an
website.
active inventory?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is that the first,
I'm sorry. This is, well, it's got a disclaimer in it, but basically you can look at the map viewer or the report or table or download GIS data.
I just wanted to correct. So it starts in April 2003, VIM's published. It should say since 2003, VIM's has published, has been, publishes. Since 2003, VIM's publishes. And then leave everything else the same. Right now it's past tense.
Well, because April 2003 was in the past.
Yeah, but you said it's still active.
They created it in 2003 and it's still up and running.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Since 2003, VIM's.
Where's since? I don't see since.
I'm telling you.
Oh, okay, you want to change the wording?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't changed it all. They're not updating it. They just did it. And
Oh, so that's what I was asking. So
Yeah.
is it an active inventory? Did they keep updating, or is that all the data back to April 2003?
all right, we got two things we're talking about here. The first paragraph talks about the shoreline situation. This is the dune inventory.
That's what I was asking.
And the dune inventory has not been updated
Okay,
since
then it's fine.
2003.
That's
The
fine.
shoreline situation reports are being updated, I
Got it.
understand,
Got it.
but the dunes are not. And a lot of people don't understand, but we do have dunes, and most of them are south of Smith Point.
Got it.
And they're not very big either, maybe 10, 8, 10 deep. I updated they have, in addition to shoreline management, it's this was something that General Assembly created, but it's anything you want to know about managing your coastal resources, it's there. And so they have various recommendations, and I can't honestly remember what's there, but if y'all want to look at it, we can. But it's basically helps the wetland board in making decisions and things of that nature on the particular stretch of creek. And it's basically advisory and information for the county regarding shorelines. At a couple meetings ago, this was put in there, and I talked with the county administrator. We do rent a porta potty for the fishing pier, but Shell Landing, Lodge Creek, and Cranes Landing, there's no initiative. Mr. Tadlock said that that's not in the plans, so.
Well, just to be clear, though, we're writing the plan.
Yeah,
So if we think it's important to have those areas, then we should leave that in and say.
Well, if I recall, the last meeting, you said, are there any short-term plans or plans to do this? And I said, no, and you said we should take it out.
Okay, then, you're right, you're calling me on it here. The thing I'm gonna raise shortly, though, is that we are the planning commission, and should we have them? There are no plans, but should we have a plan to have them? Is it in our county's interest to have porta potties at these locations?
What's the cost associated?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because if we don't have any money to pay for that.
Has there been any public demand for porta potties at these particular locations?
Well, I'll keep my mouth shut, but you usually wait and take care in open water and before you come in.
Well, if you come in on a boat, you've got your own porta potty with you.
Not necessarily.
I mean, I believe if we had them out there, they would probably be used, but I don't know where the money's coming from.
Public uproar to get them, is there?
No, sir. They're just happy to have a place to launch their boat without having to pay $10.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up to y'all. If y'all, we can leave it in there if you'd like. I just talked with Mr. Tadlock, and he said there are no plans to do that in the future. Shell Landing is actually leased from the county to, now it's called the Department of Wildlife Resources. And I think it's a 20-year lease. So they're actually in charge of Shell Landing. Now, Lodge Creek, we do own outright. We did not renew the lease with DWR. There was some kerfuffle between the Board of Supervisors and DWR because a scout had built a picnic table with a roof over it. And the state says that that's only supposed to be for boats, power boats, and anything else is not allowed. And so we said, we'll take care of Lodge Landing for that. I mean, Lodge Creek Landing, so. Now, it's our responsibility to keep it up. And Cranes Landing, not many people know about, but it's a small boat ramp with two or three parking spaces. More of a locals landing than a regional landing. But Shell Landing, of course, is our crown jewel in Fleeton.
The Lodge Creek thing you were talking about, that was a Boy Scout project, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So Mike McKinney's son did that.
Yeah, it was an Eagle Scout project, but the Department of Wildlife Resources has to follow guidelines. The money that was put forth to run and keep the boat ramps up is for power boat motor fuels taxes. So it is mainly for power boats, and they have kind of caved with canoes and kayaks. They figure they can't keep those out of there. But as far as swimming and chicken necking off the boat pier, they don't like that because it's supposed to be mainly for people with power boats that use gas and diesel.
Well, so I'm of the mind that maybe not Cranes Landing, but the other two, they should be considered. They don't have to be planned immediately, but this is supposed to be a comprehensive plan. If we're looking at expanding tourism here and access to the waterway, it seems like something reasonable to have, even if it's not immediately done.
Well, could I suggest, restroom facilities to me means a permanent bathroom.
Okay.
But maybe we could say porta potties or I don't know.
Temporary
I
toilet
don't-
facility?
If you build a bathroom, you have to build a septic system, and then that cost goes way up.
Then you gotta have somebody take care of it.
Yeah, and porta potties, of course, you just have to write a check. So how about bathroom
Toilet.
facility? Portable, I don't know.
Portable
Do we
toilet.
do we just leave it the way it is?
I think you better leave it the way it is.
Okay, so we'll take
I
Cranes
understand
Landing
that.
off.
Strike it, okay.
Yeah, I understand the need, but anything with a price tag on it, you can just forget it right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I think about $125 a month for one porta potty,
Yeah.
somewhere thereabouts.
and we probably only use it 8 months out of the year, maybe 7 months out of the year.
I don't even know if it would be a problem, but if you got them near the water and they overflow.
Well, I mean, lodges, the whole thing is flat. I mean, the hill comes down, but the property ends right there, so I'm not sure where you put it in lodge. Of course, Shell Landing is nice 15, 20-foot elevation. But I'll be glad to reinstate it and just take off Crane's Landing.
Garfield, is that what you meant? Put it back in?
Put it back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The Chesapeake Bay Act has this intensely developed shoreline areas, IDAs, and we do not have any that meets that criteria. But basically, it's just basically saying that we're going to follow best practices regarding protecting the state waters. Basically, land use and water quality, ag lands can cause them if they're not managed properly. We talked about this a few meetings ago about septage. When you pump out your septic tank, which is required by the Chesapeake Bay Act every 5 years, you need to take it somewhere, and we do not have anything in the Northern Neck that accepts that. So last I heard, they took it down to Gloucester. And we had a pretty long conversation about it, that's something that we would like to do, but of course, everything costs money. Upon further reflection of that, we take our trash to Gloucester. We don't put it around here. We don't have a landfill or the neck.
Control City.
So, I mean.
Could that be a regional thing, Stuart?
Yeah, it could be, but
You'd have to find a plan for it.
as I mentioned, I believe the last time we discussed this, when they were drawing up plans for Callio sewage treatment plan, I asked the county administrator at the time to ask him if they could possibly accept septic pump out, and he got Resource International was our engineering firm, and they drew up a holding tank that you have to slowly introduce it into the treatment plant train, and they said it would cost $1 million. And I don't think many people, and so that was a no-go. And actually, today, that the Callio's treatment plant, once a week, takes solids in a vacuum truck to Reedville to take care of it, because that system cannot handle all the solids that come in.
It was never, it's been at capacity for a long, long time.
Well, from what I hear, the laundromat is 50%, takes up 50% of the sewage treatment capacity in Callio. But it's the only laundromat that I know of in the county, isn't it?
Who is monitoring the 5-year pump out plan that?
Originally, it was the county, and we would send out notices on a staggering basis through voting districts every 5 years. And now the General Assembly has changed it to the health department is in charge of monitoring the 5-year pump out. And I have not heard anything from them. I did get a inquiry from someone that was working on it, and gave her access to some of our maps so that she could look up property owners. But I've not heard of any notices being sent out. So it's the health department's ball now,
Okay.
court right now.
On A, best management practices capitalized, is that a formal thing?
BMPs, yes.
And then health department B.
Okay. This is 518. And so, of course, basically, it talks about the various types of pollution that can happen and that we need to monitor any erosion control structures and underground storage tanks and things of that nature, and replacement of those to reduce pollution there. We do have a cluster ordinance that helps preserve open space, and a lot of times, if you look at the development of Northumberland, there'll be waterfront land, but then there's farm fields behind it, and so there we're trying to keep open space there.
First line of 13, has anything changed with respect to the gate? Has there been any action there?
I'm not sure, I'll have to check on that. I know this is the year that we're supposed to have the end of the TMDL, but I don't think that's going to happen because the states have not met their watershed nutrient reduction goals. I did go and look at that, maybe that's got it. Well, that's a bad link. No, it's still June 16th, 2024. I'll have to fix that link, though. So basically, agricultural best management practices, nutrient management planning, stormwater management, that's for the urban side and suburban side. Virginia erosion is sediment control. Philip deals with that in the Chesapeake Bay Act. The state has a non-point source pollution implement database tracking system, and we try to educate citizens on how to reduce pollution. Basically, it just outlines elements that help protect water quality, the Chesapeake Bay Act, the RPA, our subdivision ordinance. It has to meet certain guidelines with regards to online water and disposal. You can't create a subdivision if you don't have soils that perk. Zoning ordinance as well, and then county land use policies. Basically where we locate sewage treatment plants and solid waste landfills. Of course, we do not have any of those anymore. We do have some legacy ones. So that's basically it. Not a lot of change in that chapter, just mainly consistency.
So Stu, the question came up, progress of the day, our water resources. What would be a good answer? What's our progress rate? Are we where we were 20 years ago? Are we making any kind of progress?
We've made tremendous progress on the agricultural side. There's been a lot of cost share money to try to get people to take marginal soils, marginal parts of their farm that have the bad soils or the steeper slopes, and put them in grassed or tree buffers. There's money for that. Further upland, there's been a lot of money spent on fencing cows out of streams so that they're not only defecating and using the bathroom in the streams, but also them going up and down the shoreline erodes the bank, so there's a lot of sediment that comes down. Again, nutrient management plans, cover crops in the wintertime. We've got 60% coverage of cover crops in the wintertime here. So on the ag side, we've gone gangbusters on. On the urban, suburban side, not so much. That's a harder nut to crack. With ag fields, you have large expanses of land, and you only have to deal with one landowner, and you get 100 acres, right? In a suburban setting, you've got 1 acre parcels and 100 different people to deal with, and they have made some progress with regards to nitrogen fertilizer, and I don't know if you all know that, but they basically mandated in the Chesapeake Bay area that potassium is very small, regular fertilizer. Now, they do have starter fertilizer that has higher levels of potassium, but for general fertilizers, they have ratcheted down on potassium. Potassium and nitrogen are two of the chemicals that cause algal blooms, and potassium really is the trigger. And potassium also binds to soil particles, so it's harder to get rid of. Nitrogen is a lot easier to clean up. So there has been progress, but like I said, with urban and suburban, not as much. But, Virginia's done a pretty good job. Maryland, Pennsylvania's pretty much been dragging, and not as much progress as Maryland and Virginia. So there's been some finger pointing there, but from the past 20 years, I'd say we've done a lot, especially on the ag side. And considering the amount of land use we have in ag, that's a big gain. So that's all I have. I know Mr. Cost, I think, wants to bring something
A
up.
question before I get to that. I just noticed that we have a pretty long appendix. Is there plans that, there's a lot of data in there?
And all of it's dated, and I was under the impression that we were going to get rid of that appendix.
Had we talked about that? I don't remember that.
The backstory of the appendix is that the last comprehensive plan, we had a volunteer that worked with Luttrell to do the comp plan, and he did all this demographic information. And whatever y'all want to do with regards to the appendix is fine with me, but since everything was so outdated on that, I thought we had talked about it. Perhaps we had not.
I think it got mentioned, but I don't think it was really hashed out to any extent.
Well, having looked at it just now, because I really had been sort of following the program so far, the part A3 to A5, I actually think would make a fantastic preamble or opening chapter for the whole thing.
Okay.
But ditch the rest because most of it's covered and we've updated all the data in other places. But I think that the story told in A3 and to A5, I just read it really quickly, is actually quite compelling. It's sort of what's going on here. So I think we should, in terms of what I'm going to talk about now, in terms of restructuring, I think that makes sense. A lot of the demographic data that is in there was also covered in Chapter 3. So there we did a more thorough review, and we can let it go with that, in my view.
Yeah.
Well, so now I'm the guy who is willing to do more of that. And so I sent you all a proposed motion, if you will, for this. I'm of the view, if I haven't been clear already, that there's a lot of stuff in here that isn't needed. We dropped some already, but I think some of there's a lot of duplication as we move from chapter to chapter. I also think that Chapter 2 is written now as basically either an executive summary or a table of all of the objectives and recommendations that either have been or could be made. The fundamental flaw, I think, in this document is that it's mistitled right from the very beginning. Comprehensive plan. This is not a plan. This document is an inventory of the status quo with some wish list in it. A few things, nothing systemic at all. I think to be done properly, there needs to be a lot more focus on what the next 10 years of this county could look like if we want to do anything at all. And we keep talking about money is standing in the way, you know, even this discussion around porta potties at a couple of landings. And it's so indicative of, there's no vision for the future because we're just convinced we have no money, so why bother?
I think there is what you just described is sort of what I noticed about this. If you look at it as a whole, it's fairly resistant to any change or economic development, which I think reflects the attitude of the county elders for a long, long time. And it reflected the attitude of the Board of Supervisors for a very long time. I think both of those are changing. But if you recommended a large piece of economic development, you'd probably shock too many people to get it done.
Even something as obvious as the water facilities in Heathville, you know, it ain't gonna happen. We know that.
Well, they're still bitching about the people who, the developers who came down to the neck in the 60s and 70s to engage in planned unit developments. The old timers really don't like that. But they're paying higher taxes than they're used to, so they're more open to it. I don't know if you're ever going to get the leading citizens to get behind anything other than real estate development as long as it's not in their backyard.
At the very least, Patrick, I think the sense of optimism I would be around exploitation of our natural resources, doing more of it and doing it more systemically to the extent we can. You're absolutely right. There's not going to be development here of any consequence. So stepping back to where I was going with this, I previously volunteered and am re-offering to volunteer to work with Stuart to restructure the document to make it easier to read, a more coherent story, calling out recommendations instead of having them buried in a very long narrative, and trying to make this a useful document that will provide some light as to what the future might look like. And I'm also willing to offer to have this done by the April meeting. I haven't told him that. He's probably going to have a heart attack now, if you all agree. But
Well, my one concern is that in the track changes, citizens know exactly what we did. When we start moving paragraphs around here, we're gonna have to put little notes in there to say, this came from the appendix. I just don't know how the average citizen is gonna see how we got from here to there. And so that's my worry is about the track changes, because if we make wholesale changes, you're not gonna be able to follow it with those little red lines.
does the average citizen have a comprehensive working knowledge of the status quo that they want to compare? I don't think so. If we make this a shorter, more readable document, there'll be no need to do comparisons. For purposes of moving this project of ours through the process, there are ways to solve the issue of track changes on a large-scale basis, and I can show you what those look like. But to me, as I said, this is not a plan, and I would be willing to devote the time to make it look more like one, because I won't vote for this one.
Well, when you talk about exploiting the natural resources in this area, what are you specifically referring to?
How can we expand in a more systemic and careful way the use of access to and the use of our waterways for recreation, for fishing and oystering and all that other good stuff? How can we are there ways to better utilize all the farming stuff? For example, right now, everything we grow here is commodities. It's inedible and it's not processed here. So basically, the only benefit Northumberland County gets from all the farming is the property taxes the farmers pay and their income, which is fine up to a point. I know I had to miss the last meeting. There was some conversation about the fact that Mr. Brown was proposing a piece of land that had been recently farmland. Farmland is diminishing. That was 1 acre. We have tens of thousands of acres here under farming. Is 1 acre gonna kill us? And I suspect the answer is no. Is there a way to more productively use that stuff? Maybe future people want to put in housing, which we desperately need here, with a clearer plan, we'll be able to figure, okay, where should I buy land in order to build that housing, instead of getting people all up in arms by putting it in the middle of a farm field? Stuff like that, I think, has a lot of, and so I don't mean, the word exploit has negative connotations off it. I'm talking about better, more effectively
You know,
utilized.
there is for example, you're talking about using the shore resources, boating primarily. There is a huge surplus of dockage in this county. You know, people have just, ever since gas prices screamed upwards, the number of boats and the number of boat owners has decreased.
On private property, right.
Yeah. Well, you go by most of the boat yards, most of them, there are a couple of exceptions that do quite well, but most of them are not even close to full. So I don't know how you're going to address that problem.
I'm not suggesting for a moment that I'm going to sit here with Stuart and conjure up all sorts of vision for the future. In other places, I was involved in this effort in Loudoun County, obviously a much bigger and much more wealthy county. This process that went on for a long time, involved many, many citizen committees that brought all the pieces together. There was a whole committee, I was on the transportation committee, which is a big deal up there.
Yeah.
And enormous amount of time on it. We can't duplicate that. I'm not proposing that. So ultimately, we'll come back. I suspect what I would come back with are places where, could we say something about this topic? It's not in here right now. It describes the status quo. Is there something we could be doing differently?
Yes, but you do understand that there is going to be a resistance to any sort of proposed change.
Yeah, I'm not.
It really doesn't matter what it is.
I'm not proposing anything radical. I mean, I'm not proposing anything at this point because I haven't started working on it, because I want your old, Stuart needs your blessing to do this.
John, in Loudoun County, how far out were you looking? As far
10
as
years.
10 years?
These are required by law, yeah.
Well, they're supposed to look out 20 to up to 25 years out.
Loudoun County is growing very fast.
Right.
To move more.
Right.
I think if you identify changes that you think would be a good contribution to the county, that's one thing. But change just to be changing, I'm not for. Just because we don't, I think you can overdo some things in some counties to the point where people are packing up and leaving because it's too busy where they are now. I'd like to entertain other things that would be helpful to the county. One that I bring up every year, and it's still where it always is every year, is public beaches.
Mm-hmm.
Got the second largest
Exploitation.
amount of shoreline in the state of Virginia,
Exactly.
and we don't have any public beaches.
Example of exploitation.
And I don't see, how are we going to get that? It's going to take money, and you're going to have to buy the property before you tell anybody it's going to be a beach.
Right.
Because if they think it's going to be a beach and you're bidding on it, you won't get it.
Price just went up.
Yeah, so.
Well, why don't we break this down into a couple of digestible portions? If we're talking about editorial changes to the document, I think everybody's all in favor of that. We want to take a couple of pages from the appendix, and I think I remember the page you're referring to, and use it as intro, I think is a fine idea. Perhaps we should collate the recommendations throughout the document and just list them by chapter as another appendix.
Or even a recap within the chapter, because right now they're throughout. Patrick, that's where I would start, is with the editorials, the stylistic stuff and so forth. Charles, I'm not proposing, I'm gonna come here all knowing and make all sorts of wacky idea proposals here.
No,
If there's places where I think there's an opportunity, I will call those out for further discussion.
Well, let's at least agree that you're authorized to do the editorial work.
Probably should have a discussion, make sure everybody's on board with that.
Well, are we talking about a motion or a
This is the
sensible-
motion. I will make the motion as soon as it's appropriate to do so.
Anybody opposed to this idea?
Not opposed, but I am curious about Stuart's workload. I mean, it is, I know it's substantial. And
Well, Mr. Cost said it helped, but, I'm just reticent about losing control of the document. And, I will do whatever the planning commission wants to do. And we've had outside persons work on it, Dr. Hogan.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I know Mr. Cost is definitely capable.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, yeah, that expertise.
But I've been to many public hearings in Northumberland County, and I've heard it, and I can recite it, and y'all probably know it too. I saved my whole life up to buy a house on the water in a rural area where they don't have to listen to police sirens and fire department trucks, and I want the quality and tranquility that I moved here, and I don't want it to change. And so there's a large portion of the citizens that don't
We
want
had that
anything
last
to
week.
change.
A guy wants to
and
do
I'm-
a 1-acre
And if-
apartment building, and everybody in the neighborhood's screaming.
And if we go too far, I'm sure the board will tell us. So,
Yeah, I'm proposing we stop, just as Patrick said. Let's
Okay.
fix the editorial element of this and then figure out if there's substantive changes that need to go beyond that are beyond what I'm proposing my role be.
But you are proposing to change chapter 1 and then go to chapter 4. You were talking about taking chapter 4 and putting it after chapter 1? I thought.
No, it's talking about taking a couple of pages.
No, I understand that appendix.
The current chapter 2 is a standalone mess at this point. So
Right.
it's got to become an executive summary or an appendix or something. But yeah, move the appendix to the front. Get rid of the
That
duplication.
narrative, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which becomes an introduction to the master plan. I agree with you, it's useful for that.
So what you're saying is that the current regulation that we have is outdated, right?
Regulations.
I mean, the current
Document.
document,
We've done a nice job, I think, in updating it so that it's not going to be outdated.
Okay.
I'm saying it is also unreadable, and probably nobody will read it because it's just so hard to get through.
I don't think many people read comp plans unless they're trying to develop in the county or they're trying to skirt the system.
Or it's 5 years from now when we're asked to revise it again.
Well, there are, I just want to remind the planning commission, we will have to submit this to the Department of Transportation. We will have to submit this to the Department of Environmental Quality, which is Division of Stormwater, which is Chesapeake Bay Act, before we can send it to the Board of Supervisors. So once we're okay with this, we have to send it to the state agencies, and they have to sign off on
And
it.
to John's point, if we send it as it's currently written and structured, even with the changes, it's going to take forever to get through those bodies because it is a very difficult read.
Those steps are going to happen regardless of what we do.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the commission aware that there are statutes that we have to address in there, and I don't think any of them has changed, but I'm sure they will let us know if we missed something.
And now, in terms of your concern about losing control of the document, other than illustrating the county's aversion to change, what do you mean by control of the document? You want it on your computer?
No, it's just that I won't be plugged into everything that's changed, and I know Mr. Cost will work with me, and it's just, maybe I'm a control freak, I don't know.
Oh, why would you not be involved in?
No, I wouldn't be. I'm just saying, It's not my preferred way to go, but we will go however the planning commission would like to go.
Okay. Then, is there anybody opposed to the suggestion that Mr. Cost act as the editor-in-chief of the planning document?
Make it more readable.
Yeah, that's normally what an editor would do, not write it itself.
Well, is this, you talking about doing the whole document or just a preamble
The whole
of
thing.
what's in it?
The whole thing. There's so much duplication in
There is
You
a
got it.
lot of redundancy. And there are sections that I agree with you are just simply unreadable. That ought to be able to be revised or thrown out.
Well, you can do that without changing anything, is that what you're saying? Or you're going to make some changes as you go along to make it more palatable, or?
here. I didn't follow your question very well. Try again.
Well, what we've been doing with the comprehensive plan, as we call it, you're going to take some things out and,
And you will know what they are,
you know,
and some things will get moved, and some things will get consolidated, and you will know what all those things are.
But it's primarily stylistic rather than substantive.
It will not be substantive change. If there's anything substantive, I will call it out. I'm not going to mislead you.
no, I don't think you would, but I'm just, it's a lot of work to do that.
I'm retired.
It's a lot of work, and as you go along, if we could just see where we are before we get too far gone.
I plan to have it back to you by the next meeting. I don't want to string this thing out forever.
Yeah. I'm good with it.
Ms. Diggs?
I'm good with it.
So we're going to, if everybody's good with it, knock yourself out.
That's a positive vote.
Okay, I hereby move that
That's,
Mr. Cost
do we have
knocks
to use
himself
this
out.
wording?
I don't think so.
All right, okay. It'll be fine. Say that one more time.
I hereby move that Mr. Cost knock himself out as a stylistic editor-in-chief of the planning document.
Is that sufficient to it?
Sure.
I second.
Thank you, Betty.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not going to be in the office tomorrow, but I'll email you the Word documents on Monday.
And I'll put version controls, and you know exactly what's going on and all that.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, everybody's in violent agreement.
And that's all I have. The Board of Supervisors report, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, they did hear the Brown multi-unit apartment request for conditional use. Between the Planning Commission meeting and the Board of Supervisors meeting, citizens on Lone Walnut Road circulated a petition. And according to them, I did not actually see the petition, but it was, Mr. Marston got it. All the residents on Lone Walnut Road voted to sign the petition saying they opposed the project, and the board denied.
I don't know if the news account was accurate or not, but I got the impression that there was very little negotiation between the developer and the neighborhood.
At the Planning Commission meeting, if you recall, there, you did talk to him about reducing it to 3 units, but he never contacted Mr. Marston and asked to revise the site plan to reduce it to 3 units.
Did you get the sense that he had talked to anybody in the neighborhood?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
So a continuance under those circumstances simply would have been a waste of time.
Yeah, and Mr. Chip Williams stated that before he stated how he was going to vote, said that he hoped that Mr. Brown come back and try, because we need affordable housing in another area in the county.
Well, he went to Warsaw and bought an apartment house, so.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
How long ago was that?
Well, he said he bought a duplex in
Yeah.
Warsaw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At the planning commission meeting, he said he was closing on one, and then the citizens wanted to ask him where it was, and we aren't in the position to do that, but
That's
at the
correct.
board meeting, he did say it
He
was in
volunteered.
Warsaw.
Yeah.
And then they had a couple of other, I actually left the meeting, but there were some, let's see, some, bookkeeping, let's see.
Well, that was the whole, that's when the Board of Supervisors got informed of the problem with the school budget, I think.
Yeah, that was before the public hearings, but let's see.
You also have to remember, they have new people, but they have new people.
I noticed that, and when I was wondering what happened to the woman that was sort of, I guess, the head of finance.
Under medical leave. So they're on their fifth finance director in 5 years. Not one of them, probably would help though.
The second public hearing was, as it stands in our ordinances now, if we say we want to change the fee for applying for a shed, a zoning permit, the way it's written in our ordinance now, we have to go to the Board of Supervisors, we have to advertise for 2 weeks to change the fee. And so they changed it to adopt a resolution that the fee schedule can be reviewed on an annual basis, and that can be modified anywhere during the fiscal year to cover costs. So it basically streamlines it and reduces the time we have to change our permit fees. We just raised them, so I don't think they are, but we just recently learned that 911 plates cost $13, and we were charging $8, so we wanted to change that. So it allows us a little bit more flexibility.
What kind of plates was that?
The new house number, blue and white 911
Right.
reflective plates, we weren't covering the cost for those, so that's one of the things we'll be changing. And I really don't know about the budget amendment. As I said, I left earlier. I don't know if Mr. Haney's online, but they're amending the budget for grants, reimbursement, additional personnel, auditing costs, and additional inputs from monies and emergency services. I assume both of those passed. And that's all I have.
Can I, get one point of clarification here in terms of this control of the document thing? When you are planning to present the new plan to the Board of Supervisors, is it going to be marked up with all of these track changes, or are you going to present the raw new document?
Honestly, this is the first comprehensive plan I did. When I first got here, Luttrell had just gotten through the process. That's when I started in 2016. I'm assuming we'll give them both, and in case they want to look. I think they would much rather have a clean copy, but I think they would want to be able to reference changes. I would make them both available for them. But as I mentioned, once the Planning Commission passes it, that's normally when we send it off to the state for review.
So what I'm getting at though is this whole issue of the track changes and how much of that they're going to need to see. I mean, the reason I was thinking that is we've just made a bunch of relatively minor changes in Chapter 5, very little of substance.
Mm-hmm.
Is any of that relevant for them to see those changes?
I would strongly prefer, following, I think, John's train of thought, I would rather much that they see a finished product that looks professional. I don't want them getting something that looks like cut and paste. And we can now, we can tell them that if anybody wants to track the changes, we can have documents that make that possible. But
So normally what I do is when I make changes and then I bring them to the planning commission, I create a PDF standalone snapshot in time of that. So I've got multiple PDFs of the Word document through various changes. So I've got, the progression of them. But if you, however y'all like to present it to the board, if they want a clean copy, that's fine. I do think it's important to keep a reference copy that shows all the changes, in case they have questions.
I would ask the chairman to see what he wants.
Mr. Haney?
I would.
Is Mr. Haney online? We're not there yet, so I think we'll have
It does
time.
affect though how we proceed, yes. I'm very strongly of the mind that they need to get a clean copy. These markups are just gonna confuse them.
Yeah, well, once you accept changes, then you can never go back. Yeah, so that's why I like to keep archive
well, we can
copies.
keep historical references. Our little version of the Dead Sea Scrolls is fine with me, but I want to present something to the State Departments and to the Board of Supervisors that looks like professionals wrote it.
I agree,
And I don't think the cut-throughs and the scribbles and the margin notes just don't belong there, frankly.
But at some point, somebody's going to ask a question, well, I thought this was different, what did we change? You need to refer back to why, and show them what we had, and
Sure.
and why we changed it.
And if you really want to punish them, you email a copy of the marked up documents, and you'll never hear from it again.
That would take care of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I plan on making a PDF copy of everything before I send to Mr. Cost, and then he can, as he goes along, make copies if he wants. But I was not planning on submitting to state agencies a marked up copy. Definitely going to send a finished copy.
One thing, and Charles, to your point, you make a very, very good point. The thing that has impressed me a lot in working with Stuart is he remembers all that stuff. He knows the history, he knows the background. So when it comes to the verbally answering the questions, I have complete faith that he's going to handle it.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked on, 2006, I did all the maps for Mr. Tadlock, and then in 2016, I updated all the maps for Mr. Tadlock. And so I know, and I've lived in Northumberland for 25 years now, so
Wow.
I'm more of an upper end county guy, but I do get down to the bottom every once in a while.
I know how Stuart feels, he's got a lot of time invested in it,
Well,
more than the rest of us. And
I've never really heard of a comprehensive plan being readable or enjoyable reading or anything like that.
We're setting a lofty goal.
Yeah, if you really want to take a gander at a very fancy dancy marketing comp plan, I would suggest you look at Richmond County's comp plan. They hired a consultant. Luttrell asked them how much they paid the consultant to do it, but it's really glossy and it's got very few maps in it, which surprised me, but evidently it meets state,
Didn't Lancaster County just do their master plan?
yeah, and I tried, and Olivia would not send it to me, so it may be on the webpage now, I'm not sure. But I asked and 2 or 3 times, and she said, I'll get to it when I get to it. So,
Well, the reason why I mention this is, first of all, it read pretty well. And secondly, they identified it from the standpoint of the population and what prospective employers would like to see in terms of skills. And it was sort of a left-handed way of saying, here's how we need to upgrade the school system. And it was a really interesting and compelling read, and I generated a ton of conversation.
That was Lancaster County, you said?
Yeah, and it was
I think that was
about a year ago this time this came out. So it ought to be on their website by now. But it was very goal-oriented. as you-
Shocking. As opposed to inventory.
Now, whether that got them anywhere or not, I don't know. Well, Mr. Chairman, will you entertain a motion to adjourn at this point?
Does the commissioners have anything else you'd like to do? No. Because I know John's dying to go to work.
He's gonna be up till about Wednesday of next week, just on
Okay.
this.
I second the motion.
Second motion, we stand adjourned.
Thank you, sir.